Are you finding it difficult to stick to your journaling habits? Maybe you started a bullet journal recently or resolved to journal more often this year. If you're starting to lose motivation and are beginning to fall off the journaling train, this video is for you. One of the best ways to get yourself to actually use your journal is to make it a habit. That way you don't have to consciously think about it, you'll just do it. For this reason, setting up a journaling routine can be a great tool. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my own journaling routine and some of the insights I've come across after 4 years of bullet journaling. Hopefully these tips will be able to help you set up your own effective journaling routine to be able to stick to your journaling goals for essentially forever. I have 2 different journaling systems, one being a bullet journal and one being a more traditional type of journal where I just write down my thoughts and document events from the day. My bullet journal is my planner ranging from long-term tasks to daily to-do lists. It's also a place to store notes and ideas that aren't related to my classwork. Basically, I put almost everything in my bullet journal. For the bullet journaling section of this video, I'm going to start with my yearly routines, which are the longest time frame, and then work my way down all the way to my daily routines. A basic overview of the way I decide what's done on a yearly basis, a monthly basis, a weekly basis, or a daily basis is that it depends on how often these layouts or setups are changed. For example, something like a year in pixels, which is consistent throughout the entire year, only needs to be done once in a year. So I want to get it done as early in the year as possible, which means batching it along with all of my yearly setups. But on the other hand, something that changes every single day, like my homework assignments, needs to be updated daily. For that reason, I include it in my daily routine. This might be kind of a vague explanation, but I'll get into the specific details of what kinds of spreads will fall into each category as we move along throughout the video. So let's jump into my yearly bullet journaling routine. I set up a new bullet journal at the end of each calendar year for the next coming year. My pace is fairly consistent. I usually finish about one 140-page journal each calendar year. This yearly setup includes any spread that will span the entire year, like my year in pixels or my book reading goals, and a grid for each month for me to plan ahead. Here is what I do each month as part of my monthly routine. In the last few days of the month, I set up a new monthly layout, which includes any setups that are used for an entire month, like my habit trackers, since I reevaluate and switch out my habits every month. Next, my weekly routine includes setups that are filled out on a weekly basis, which includes goal reflection and my gratitude journal. Anything that needs to be done on a weekly basis is completed on Sunday morning, since on Sunday mornings I almost always have free time by myself at home. And lastly, let's discuss my daily bullet journaling routine, which is often the hardest part to stick to, since motivation ebbs and flows day to day, while on a weekly or monthly basis I almost always find at least one day or weekend where I have the most motivation to stick to my organizational goals. In class, I write down my homework assignments in my daily to-do list as soon as I'm told about them. I also write down additional tasks as they come up. For example, if I receive an email that has something I need to get done. As needed, I may use one of 3 special setups I use for my daily to-do list in order to break down larger, more overwhelming task lists. One, I might use a sticky note for a big task that includes all of its smaller steps. Number 2, I might use asterisks or a number system in order to mark tasks that are more important with a star or rank them in order of their priority. Or number 3, I might set up a timetable, which I use for days when I have almost the entire day free to myself, like weekends. Besides consistent use while I'm in class or working on tasks, I have a nighttime routine. After I've brushed my teeth and showered, but before I go to sleep, I will fill out all of my trackers for the day. This includes mostly those trackers that I meant to summarize a day, such as my habit trackers or my year in pixels mood tracker. I might also add to my books read spread if I finished something for that day. Basically, anything in my yearly or monthly setups that needs to be filled out on a day-to-day basis. I also set up the next day's to-do list. Anything that's unfinished from today's list, I will migrate over to the next list. And I'll check my monthly grid, which is where I write my upcoming tasks and events and migrate them over into the next day's to-do list. As you might have gleaned from the way I've described my routines, the most important thing about setting up a routine is to make it very clear and consistent exactly when you will be doing these journaling tasks. This way there's no going back and forth. Am I supposed to do things on this day? Maybe I'll put it off till tomorrow or the next hour or the next morning. It's just set in stone. This is when you'll do it. So hopefully you will do it. And if you are having problems with procrastinating or reminding yourself to get these things done, I will link some resources in the cards and in the description. Of course, my bullet journal does include some irregularities that don't really fit into a routine. For example, I might set up a packing list for a trip that I go on, which doesn't really fall into a weekly or a monthly schedule. It just kind of is its own setup. Some examples of this might include a fitness plan or my study plan for finals. So that is my entire bullet journaling routine. And now let's talk about my other journal, which I will call my messy journal. This is separate from my bullet journal because I do a more messy brain dump style of journaling in this notebook. And since my bullet journal is generally quite neat, I feel less comfortable doing messy style journaling inside my bullet journal. And I don't want to feel limited by my journal, so for this reason I decided to separate the two into one neater organizational-based planner and one messy brain dump journal. This messy journal has two main purposes. The first one being to write about what's on my mind. Writing helps me with clarifying my thoughts. It's almost like having a conversation with myself. To quote Ashley from Best Dressed, "It's cheaper than therapy." I find it really helpful to make me actually think about emotions and thoughts that are problematic and don't help me and that aren't constructive, and usually helps me address them in a way that makes me feel more at ease, as if a weight has been lifted from my mind. The second purpose of this journal is to document memories. I like to paste in photos or Polaroids or physical mementos. For the documentation purposes, I try to write as if I'm writing a letter to an imaginary friend who lives really far away and isn't that updated on what's happening in my life. This encourages me to get all the details down and actually explain them, instead of assuming that future me will also remember what all of these things mean. This is to create something I can look back on later. I don't really have a clear routine for my messy journal. I just write in it whenever I feel like I need to vent or I need to think about something, or whenever I feel like something important that is worth documenting has happened. On average, I write maybe every few days, but the pacing's not very even, and I don't really force myself to write in this journal. I feel like trying to make myself write in this daily would make it feel like more of a chore and something I have to do, rather than encouraging me to write when I think it would be helpful to me. And that's an overview of my personal journaling routine. Hopefully you found it helpful in structuring your own journaling routine to be able to better stick to your journaling habits. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I upload new videos every Monday. My Instagram is @studyquill, where I post photos of my bullet journal and notes. See you next time!